Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, as a young black girl growing up, being raised by my grandparents, I can remember as young as 4 years old, sitting between her legs, getting my hair plaited and or braided, and she would constantly note the importance of taking care of your crown. And that is not just a cultural experience that I am familiar with, but every black girl across this nation and across this world knows what a special cultural experience, I will refer to it as, getting your hair done. And it was during our, I think, first or second session here in council. I look back at my colleagues, Councilwoman Brooks and Councilwoman Gaultier, and they had beautiful braided hairstyles. Councilwoman Gilmore Richardson had our sort of travel wet and wavy. And for those of you who don't know, I had my nice Jackie in, don't pull it too hard. And I thought to myself, Mr. President, that we here in this body are welcomed when we have our hair in different styles, and it communicates different expressions about what we are and what we feel. And we are allowed to be members of this body without being discriminated against when we are out there campaigning amongst the public relative to our hair. So today I am proud to introduce what I consider to be the local version of the CROWN Act. And for those of you who may not be familiar, CROWN is an acronym that stands for Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair. What this bill would do is amend the code to clarify that unlawful discrimination on the basis of race includes discrimination based on characteristics commonly associated with race, such as hair textures and styles. The legislation would ban hair discrimination in housing, employment, school, competitive sports, and beyond. If in fact this council decides to pass this legislation, we would in effect become the first city in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania to adopt such a law, and we would also be joining a growing list of states and other jurisdictions that have either introduced and or adopted legislation banning hair discrimination. Now I do want to note for the record and say a specific thanks to our colleagues in the General Assembly, specifically Democratic Caucus Chair Joanna McClinton, along with our Democratic Appropriations Chairman Vincent Hughes, and the Senate, who are also working on this legislation at the state level. I also have to thank Rue Landau on the Commission of Human Relations. Ruth, thank you for your guidance and your assistance in working to get the legislation moving and drafted and comparing and contrast where Philadelphia would stand and what we were proposing compared to other jurisdictions. For those of you who don't know, hair discrimination is still very much a reality for black people. Earlier this year, you'll remember a black student in Pittsburgh was told that he would be suspended from school or even kept from graduating if he did not cut his locks. In October 2019, a Penn State University football player, he received a letter from an alumnus of Penn State stating that his quote-unquote locks looked disgusting and are certainly not attractive. And there have been other recent high-profile instances at the national level, too. You'll remember the New Jersey wrestler who was forced to cut his locks before he could participate in a match that he went on to win. Kudos to him. And we can't forget actress Gabrielle Union, who was told on multiple occasions that her hairstyles were, in effect, too black for America's Got Talent. As a black woman, I personally understand how we've been forced to conform to mainstream standards of beauty for decades. I'm proud to witness more and more women embracing their natural beauty and rejecting the need to fit into what we call a makeshift frame that was once defined what beauty was and what was acceptable. It's about accepting who we are and loving who we are. For anyone who would attempt to minimize this legislation and say that it is just about hair, it's not just about hair, it's also about culture. And I want to thank my colleagues who co-sponsored this legislation today. today. I look forward to working with you to make it a reality in the future. And just have to state, as a matter of personal privilege, my son Langston, following in the footsteps of his dad, actually locked last year. He's coming up on his second year, and he wants a ponytail, but it hasn't grown long enough yet for a ponytail, so he just has to wait for it. When we pass this legislation, it will make me feel confident enough to know that Langston, who is now 7, he'll be 8 this year, when he gets older, even if he's able to grow into that ponytail, he won't be discriminated against in school, in housing, in competitive sports, or anything in the city of Philadelphia. And that will be because this local government made a decision to include it in its anti-discrimination laws. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman.